What's up, guys? It's Slav here, and today we're talking about South Calgary. Have you ever wondered what sets it apart from the rest of the city, or what it's like, or if it's a good option for you? Well, I'm going to cover all of that here today, so stay tuned. Now, before I dive right in, I want to make it a little bit clear. Where is South Calgary? You'd think it's fairly obvious, but not necessarily. The city's broken up into four quadrants. We've got northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. Primarily, I'm talking about the southwest and the southeast, but not all of the southwest. Let me explain. If you look on the map here, you'll see that right there is Cougar Ridge. And if we go all the way south here, that's Belmont. Both of those are in the southwest, and you can see both of those are in completely different areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to break it down like this. Everything south of Glenmore Trail is going to be considered South Calgary. Everything on the west side, where Cougar Ridge, Aspen Woods is, and Springbank Hill, that's all West Calgary, and I'm going to cover that in a different video. Now, if you're not already confused enough, there is actually a community called South Calgary. And it's not in South Calgary. We're just going to ignore that because that's a part of city center. So we're talking about everything south of Glenmore all the way down to the very edge of the city. Now that I've got all of that fun stuff out of the way, let's talk about South Calgary. What is it that makes it a great area to live? Well, first of all, I actually grew up there. I spent a lot of my childhood days there. I lived there for a very long time as an adult as well. So I personally have quite a bit of a fondness for South Calgary. And that being said, I still like Northwest. I like the West. There's a lot of different parts of Calgary that I personally really enjoy. But the South has a certain place in my heart. One of the main things you're probably wondering is what kind of homes can we find in the South? We'll find a pretty big variety. Predominantly, it's going to be single-family homes. They range from anywhere starting from $300,000 up to about $3 million. Now, that is quite the range. The reality is that most of the South is going to be more somewhere around here in the 4s, 5s, and 6s. So between 300 and 600 is where we're going to find the bulk of the homes in the South. We will find some in the lower 300s, and we're going to find a few closer to 3 million. Those are typically the exception and not the rule. A lot of those homes are going to be on a lakefront or maybe on a ridge, or they're just humongous. We also have a very wide range of construction years. If we go all the way to the north, close to Glenmore Trail, we're going to be seeing homes that are built in the 50s and 60s. If we go all the way down to the south, we're going to be seeing brand new homes that are still currently under construction. The reality is that we can pick from either, and they can potentially be good options. If we're looking in more mature areas, such as Acadia, Fairview, Kingsland, Cedar Brae, those are homes that are going to need some renovations, or maybe they've already been renovated. But either way, those can be really good options. If we want something very new, we're going to go all the way down to the south to something like a Wolf Willow, Mahogany, Seton, or maybe Belmont. So we're going to have a wide range of options. As you might already know, Calgary is a driving city, so it's important to explore the idea of how accessible is South Calgary. If we're going all the way down to the deep south where the newest communities are, most of which are beneath 22x, we're looking at about a 30-minute drive to city center. However, if we're looking at something a lot further north, closer to Glenmore, it might be a 10-minute drive. So there is going to be a bit of a variation. One of the really nice things that's happened recently is we've had one additional leg of the ring road open up and get finished in terms of construction. So on the west side, this is the southwest portion of the ring road. And for those of you who aren't familiar, the city is trying to finally finish a ring road that goes all the way around the city in a circle and connects everything. We're almost there. The southwest portion just got finished. We still have to wait for the west portion to get done, but that should be done in a matter of years. One of the nice things about the ring road opening up in the southwest is it gives communities like Evergreen, Oak Ridge, and other areas on the west side easier access into downtown and into the northwest. Because before, they would have to drive east, then north, then west again, and that was not very convenient. Now, South Calgary is home to my favorite park in all of Calgary, and it's actually the biggest park in all of Calgary, the Fish Creek Provincial Park. For those of you who are used to going to a small little park that's nearby, maybe you can walk the whole thing in 5 minutes. That is not what Fish Creek Park is. It is massive. And to put it into perspective, there are 66 kilometers of paved roads walking paths and bike paths. There are 33 kilometers of granular paths. This is where you're just going to have the little pebbles. And you have a whole bunch of other unmarked and not necessarily clear-cut paths. I've tread all of them and they're all excellent. Every time I go down to the park, I find a new path because the reality is it's very big and it spans from the west side to almost all the way to the east side of the south. So you have a lot of options for going down there and enjoying yourself. Some of the activities that people do down in the park include hiking, picnicking, swimming, fishing, biking, rollerblading, and just having a good time. It also has a cafe and a restaurant. A lot of mature communities have access to Fish Creek Park. What's nice is that because it winds around and kind of stretches for a while, there's a lot of communities that will have access to the park. Most of them are going to be mature communities, but some areas like Evergreen, which is a newer community, also has access to the park. And the way that the park is created, it's a valley. When you go down into it, sometimes you can't even see the houses up on the ridge, so you can't even tell that you're inside of a city. It's got a really nice feeling. If you're a person who really enjoys heading out, going for hikes, going for walks, being in nature, Fish Creek Park can be very exciting. On top of that, the ridge homes that overlook the park typically are very nice. Of course, they're expensive, but they come with some of the best views in the south. The south is very popular for young families and maturing families. So what that means is that schools are very important. And north of 22X, most of those communities are fully fleshed out and you have designated schools not too far away. The south portion, south of 22X, is a bit of a different story. That's typically where all the new construction goes into place. And the way that we build communities in Calgary is we put the houses first and we worry about everything else later. So schools are not always available. And that's one thing that you do need to keep in mind. The other nice thing is we do have 2 hospitals in the south. We have the South Health Campus in the deep southeast, and we have a little bit more central, the Rocky General Hospital. And finally, we have St. Mary's University. Unfortunately, all of the other post-secondary institutions are going to be a lot further north, so that is one downside to the south. You don't really have access to the U of C, SAIT, or Mount Royal. From a shopping perspective, you have a lot of options. There are several big malls, including Chinook Mall, which is one of the most popular in Calgary, South Centre Mall, plus Deerfoot Meadows, where we have a Costco and IKEA, and we actually have another Costco on the very far west side that just very recently opened up. So your shopping opportunities are very good. The only thing is you're probably not going to be walking there, you will be driving there. Now, I've mentioned already that Calgary is a driving city. If you've got a car, you're good to go. But what if you don't want to drive, you want to take public transit? Do you have any options? The good news is that you do have the C-Train line, which runs on the west side along McLeod Trail all the way down to Somerset. You can take that to City Centre and then the northwest or the northeast. So you have some options. Unfortunately, the line which is supposed to connect the southeast, the deep southeast portion of Calgary, to the rest of the city is not built yet. It's called the Green Line. It's going to happen eventually, who knows when. Now, I've already mentioned that south of 22X is where most of the new communities are going in. When we're looking at a brand new community, we're going to have some options. On the very west side, we could be looking at something like Belmont or Yorkville, as well as Wolf Willow. On the east side, we're looking at something like Mahogany, which is about halfway done and has a lake, but the price points can be a little bit higher. And we're also going to have Seton and Riverstone. So we actually have a lot of communities to choose from. And as I mentioned before, not all of these communities have the amenities in place. So if you have young kids and they need to go to school, it can be a bit of a challenge. They're going to need to get either bused or you're going to have to drive them to their school. But there are a lot of options, and new construction ranges greatly in price, anywhere from $400,000 to over $1 million, depending on the location. South Calgary is home to almost all of the lake communities in Calgary, which is crazy because if you're looking for a lake community, you're kind of going to be stuck in the south because in the northwest, in the northeast, we have very few. So what if you specifically want to live in a community which has a lake? What are your options? You can take a look at Auburn Bay, Mahogany, Mackenzie Lake, Chaparral, Sundance, Midnapore, and Lake Bonavista. And to top it off, Lake Bonavista actually has 2 lakes. What community has 2 lakes? Fun fact, Lake Bonavista is the oldest community in Canada to have a lake. One lake is accessible to the entire community, and the other one is super exclusive, only to the houses right around it. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is if you're living in a lake community, you are paying fees per year, whether you're using the lake or not. It's typically several $100s, so it usually isn't going to break the bank, but it is a consideration. One area that I want to mention, which is technically not a part of Calgary, is Heritage Point. It's just south of Legacy, which is pretty much as far south as Calgary goes. And it's a very nice, quiet, almost rural community, which gives you a much slower and quieter lifestyle. So if you want to be out in the country, but not have too much of that country feel, and you want to commute to Calgary, definitely check out Heritage Point. You have a lake, you've got a golf course, and you have a lot of land nearby. So now that we've gone through what you have in the South and what it's all about, I'm going to quickly touch on a few communities that I want to know. So if we're looking for something a bit less expensive, and if we're looking in a mature area where we're open to renovating, or we're open to live in a home that's a little bit more dated but farther north and closer to city center, we might want to look at a few communities. Queensland, Cedar Brae, Fairview. These can be very good communities if you want to live in a mature area on a bit more of a budget and maybe put some money into the home. If we're looking for something a bit newer, but we're also looking for a more affordable price point, we can explore options like Bridlewood, Copperfield, and maybe Mackenzie Town. Mackenzie Town is a little bit older, but still relatively fresh. And if we're looking for a mature community that's a little bit higher in price, we might want to check out Pump Hill, Lake Bonavista, or Parkland. I already touched base on Lake Bonavista, and you know it's awesome. It's got 2 lakes. Parkland, on the other hand, is very close to Fish Creek Park and has a lot of real estate that's right on the ridge where you get a really awesome view. If we want a more expensive home in a nicer, newer area, we're going to be looking at Auburn Bay, Mahogany, and potentially Legacy. You will find some good options there. So that's about all I have for South Calgary. I hope that gives you a really good idea of what South Calgary is all about. If you have any questions, please let me know. I love the area and I'm more than happy to talk about it.